Hey kiddies, it's Triple Feature Tuesday once again, and this week we're looking at the three sci-fi amigos.
We are the three.
Remember the three amigos? It's okay if you don't. It was not the biggest hit in the world. It has developed a certain level of cult status, but I'm here to tell you, it's one of the best things ever. It's comedy, western, made in the 80s, set in the silent picture era, starring Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and Martin Short as the three titular amigos. And were contract players who blew their contract and then end up going to Mexico on like false pretenses. They think it's a gig, but it turns out all these poor Mexican people think that they were actually, Western superheroes, and they need their help to stop the evil the infamous El Guapo. None of that has anything to do with what we're going to be talking about today, except to the extent that this triple feature is focused on Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and Martin Short, making sci-fi comedies in the 80s, and we group them together because I like grouping things together. So, comedians and sci-fi. Generally, it's like a regular sci-fi movie, except instead of everything being deadly serious, it's all played for hijinks, and oh, the hijinks we're going to have today. Fun thing to note for these movies is that they are basically parodies of pre-existing sci-fi films, except, like I said, now they're played for laughs. Except for the Chevy Chase one, that's, well, we'll get into that. Our menu is going to go in increasing order of quality of the film and quality of the actor. So we're going to look at Modern Problems with Chevy Chase, Innerspace with Martin Short, and The Man with Two Brains with Steve Martin. Alright, I'll level with you. Modern Problems is not good. Like at all. I rewatched it for this one, and it's just, I don't know why. This is like an early indicator of the bad direction Chevy Chase movies were going to go in. It's sort of weird, like, because Chevy Chase has achieved, like, he's got his hits. Like, there's more than enough movies to say Chevy Chase was a star, and there's, like, even more stuff to prove that Chevy Chase is funny. But when you look at the breadth of the man's career, he really was the original Joe Piscopo. He's the guy that left Saturday Night Live too early and, became something of an asshole. Which is not to say Joe Piscopo is an asshole. It's just, his career didn't take off as well as it should because Joe Piscopo. Chevy Chase plays Max Fiedler, a put-upon, paranoid, prone to jealousy air traffic controller whose girlfriend has just dumped him because he literally is bugging their apartment and her car and her office and stuff because he thinks that she's cheating on him, which, fellas, jealousy is not the best cologne. So through the course of events, he gets exposed to toxic waste and gets supreme telepathic and telekinetic powers, and he uses them for petty revenge. This was 1983, so the special effects, I mean, there were good special effects movies in that time. It's just I don't think anybody felt the need to put the budget into Modern Problems. So everything is basically a cheaper version of Zapped, but starring Chevy Chase and a bunch of other good people. Mary-Kate Place is in there, and she's just always charming. Patty D'Arbanville. Brian Doyle Murray, in rewatching it, is really great. He plays a handicapped individual who is just awesome throughout the whole thing. And I was kind of digging how they just treated it as like, okay, you're handicapped, and like there's the obligatory, wow, you're amazing for doing all the things, you're handicapped. But then they just show him doing things, and they don't comment on it. It's just another part of the movie. And there's Dabney Coleman playing a self-help guru / louse because it's 80s Dabney Coleman. We love him, but we love him because he does that one thing really, really well over and over and over again. But really, it's just, goofy Zap stuff where you see things are, being moved around basically on strings. We have a pretty good sequence in the ballet where Max makes everybody embarrassed, and a really horrific bloody nose scene in a restaurant. And, of course, the infamous cocaine scene. Brian Doyle Murray's housemate is played by Nell Carter, playing a Haitian immigrant named Dorita. And when Max starts showing off all his powers and really getting high and mighty, she thinks that he is possessed by a demon, and so she tries to perform some sort of voodoo ritual to expel the demon, which involves pouring demon sand all around the bed that he's sleeping on, and he, of course, snorts the whole thing like a line of cocaine, and that's where we get that picture of Chevy Chase screaming, "I like it!" That became something of a meme at some point. It's on Tumblr a bunch, but, yeah. Other than that, it's just... It's like with every Chevy Chase movie, you see the potential of Chevy Chase because he was just the greatest wise ass in the world. It's just, why did he always also have to be kind of a jerk to pretty much everybody he worked with? I mean, it's like, I get it. You're Chevy Chase and I'm not, but why do you have to rub it in all the time? If you want to look up the word underrated in the dictionary, you will find Martin Short, because the man can make literally anything funny. He has made nothing funny over and over and over again. He has made a bunch of movies that aren't good, but he is always good in them. This is not the case in this one. Innerspace by Joe Dante of Gremlins and Howling fame is just a good time. It is essentially Fantastic Voyage, but played for laughs. This is the most serious film on the triple feature this week, in that people's lives are at stake, and it's presented as, it would be a bad thing if they died. Martin Short plays Jack Putter, a lowly hypochondriac Safeway clerk, who one day when he's going to his doctor for yet another checkup, he is accosted by a man in a lab coat and injected into his buttocks. What he doesn't know at first is that inside the syringe is a miniaturized, I guess it would be like the equivalent of a deep sea vehicle piloted by brilliant test pilot / alcoholic Tuck Pendleton, and played by a very, very pretty 80s Dennis Quaid. And the plan was to prove that miniaturization works and that we can go around in people's bodies a la Fantastic Voyage and, learn all sorts of things about biology, with a rabbit. But there were corporate raiders run by Kevin McCarthy. They sent Fiona Lewis and Vernon Wells to steal the miniaturization process and to sell it to other people for money. Vernon Wells, of course, of Road Warrior and Commando fame, has this amazing Inspector Gadget arm that he's always, taking it off and doing random bits with it. It's just, it's a good time. So the movie is essentially Dennis Quaid in a room separate from everybody else, talking on a microphone to Martin Short and trying to get back the technology so that Tuck can get taken out of Martin Short and re-enlarged before he runs out of oxygen, because the experiment was only supposed to run 2 days, and, those 2 days are running short. But it's also Joe Dante, so any chance for craziness is present. We, of course, get a whole bunch of the regulars. Henry Gibson pops up, the aforementioned Kevin McCarthy, Dick Miller, and Robert Picardo are there. Robert Picardo is really a lot of fun, playing the cowboy as some sort of... I don't know, I could never tell if he was supposed to be European or Middle Eastern, tech black marketeer, and there's a really great sequence where Dennis Quaid through, they'll call it science in the movie, but it's essentially magic, manages to alter the nerves in Martin Short's face to turn him into Robert Picardo, and there is a grotesque to the point of silliness sequence where his face morphs from one to the other, and it's wonderful. It's a great example of what you could do with practical makeup effects, because they didn't have the computers to do just a straight morph into him, so they're just showing practically what would go into doing this, and then putting it in a microwave and making it so much worse. But it's really a hoot. The sequences with Tuck inside Martin Short's body are really pretty and interesting, and just I love Innerspace. This movie's a good time. Oh, also, Meg Ryan's in there. And, it's kind of funny because when I was rewatching the trailer, they sort of forgot Meg Ryan was in there too, because there's so much other stuff and she wasn't Meg Ryan just yet. But she's in there playing a great investigative reporter and, being Martin Short's bravery whenever he needs it. She's also dating Tuck, or sort of dating Tuck, was dating Tuck. It's complicated. Joe Dante, Innerspace, silliness, people that are miniaturized to half their size and still trying to find ways to attack everybody, and Henry Gibson. for shits and giggles. Finally, we have The Man with Two Brains, starring Steve Martin, directed by Carl Reiner, so it's another team up from the Jerk team. This movie's just silly. This movie's just silly from start to finish. It has vague connections to Frankenstein and sort of, brain swapping stuff. Steve Martin stars as Dr. Michael Hoffhauer, the most brilliant neurosurgeon ever, inventor of the patented screw top head that, makes getting in and out of the brain so much easier. And it's just goofy throughout the whole thing. Kathleen Turner, in Body Heat Kathleen Turner days, is a gold-digging Black Widow type of woman who keeps marrying rich people for their money and then ending up killing them. She runs into the street and is accidentally hit by Dr. Hoffhauer. He saves her life and they fall in love, and she's of course in love with him because he's got money, and then all sorts of hijinks ensue when they go to Europe for a brain conference, and she's basically trying to drive him insane so that she can kill him for the money, but he really loves him because despite being a brilliant neurosurgeon, he's kind of a moron. And while he's in Europe, he meets another neurosurgeon played by David Warner, who has managed to extend seemingly indefinitely brain life after it is removed from the body. And while he's showing off all his brains to Dr. Hoffhauer realizes that he can telepathically communicate with one of the brains, and that's voiced by Sissy Spacek. And they fall in love. And he's kidnaps her to try to rescue her, and then he finds out about Kathleen Turner, and then he's trying to get the good brain and Kathleen Turner, and then there's the elevator killer, a serial killer who is killing people by shooting them up with Windex in elevators, and that turns out to be Merv Griffin, and there's a gorilla that has the brain of Steve Martin's mentor, and David Warner's castle/condo is made out of paper, and then there's pinball stuff involved, and for you horror movie guys, brief appearance by pre-reanimator Jeffrey Combs as a medical orderly. So maybe this was Dr. West before, while he was still in med school. When you try to explain The Man with Two Brains, it makes even less sense than when you watch it. So you should just watch it because it's hilarious and it has sci-fi leanings like Innerspace and Modern Problems, and they all feature the three main characters of the Three Amigos, which, again, if you haven't seen that, you should see that, even though it has nothing to do with this triple feature here, other than just as a framing device. So watch all four of those movies, and I'll see you guys soon.